Yo, what up folks, TrevCG here, talking about Explorer Anthology 3. It's now the 8th of July, at the weekend, which means we're going to start getting more previews now. So, the cards we knew already, Deathrite Shaman, Eidolon of Blossoms, and Cyclonic Rift. None of these particularly inspiring. Deathrite, the only one that's actually seen play in Pioneer decks over the last 3 months. We can actually have a look at this. I'm using Goldfish here just because it's convenient, but if you have a look here, Pioneer from tournaments, last 3 months, top finishes, you have 5 deck lists here. If you're interested, for Cyclonic Rift, let's hit that search button. We got nothing. And then similarly, we can have the Eidolon of Blossoms. I was like, maybe Eidolon seen play in like one of these enigmatic incarnation decks, but in fact, no. So 2 like actual titles. Those are Deathrite's like a nice card to have, but not really seen play. But just for reference, if I look at like Thoughtseize in here, we might find a significantly higher number. You see 2,148 deck lists playing in it. Okay, cool. So those are the 3 cards we initially got, which I put in here, and we're going to have a look at building Explorer Anthology 3 ourselves, but we've also got one new spoiler, just came out yesterday, and that is Xenagos, God of Revels, which is a great one, because actually sees play in the most popular version, at least in Pioneer, of Is It Creativity, alongside Worldspine 1, which we can also assume we're getting. Just for reference again, we'll just have a look and see how we're doing here. Xenagos, God of Revels, let's just have a quick search here. There we go, and you can see there's like 95 deck lists here. Some of these are Team of Creativity, some of these are Is It Creativity, but really strong deck. It also did very well the last Pioneer Pro Tour in the hands of, I believe, Reed Duke. I think he finished second, might have won. So we've added these 2 here. So you've got Deathrite Shaman, Eidolon of Blossoms, Cyclonic Rift, and then we've added Xenagos and Worldspine Worm. If you're not familiar, you basically Creativity for 2, get Xenagos and Worldspine Worms into creatures in your deck, and then Xenagos doubles Worldspine Worms' power and toughness, making it a 30/30 with trample, and then also gives it haste. And you go attacking with a 30/30 trample. It also makes a bunch of worms that it dies. It's very solid. And this is the primary win condition for Is It Creativity in Pioneer. Alright, cool. We added all of those. The other thing that's come out this weekend, MTG Hillbilly earlier today spoiled this card, which, as you'll notice, is Cinderglade, which is a Pioneer legal card, and one of the cycle of Battle for Zendikar lands, which includes Prairie Stream, the blue-white one, which is a huge addition for blue-white control in the format. It makes laydown arms a lot nicer, is really handy. It's a bit of a weird one where they put them in a historical anthology, which, as an Explorer player, where I want the formats to be, you know, the same, Pioneer and Explorer, this is great. Awesome, we don't take space in the Explorer Anthology, and we get some Explorer cards. Maybe it means they get Valakut or something in Historic, but hey, it means that, hey, we don't have to worry about any of this stuff here. So, okay, we've got 5 cards, we're looking at about 25 total, so what else are we going to add? The main deck's missing. You go to popular decks in metagame, and we can have a look at Pioneer. What are we actually missing out of the top archetypes? Now, one of the big things is obviously Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, we'll get to, but the primary deck we're missing entirely is Lotus Field Combo. There's the blue-white version of it, which is decent. They're still missing some pieces, but there's a lot of overlap between those 2. And so the key cards here that are missing, we have Thespian Stage, obviously copies Lotus Field, really important. Sylvan Scrying finds Lotus Field, Hidden Strings lets you get those taps and untaps to start making all the mana, which really powers the deck. There are a couple of other things. There are copies of Dig Through Time, like depending on which, there are a couple of different like slight variations. We've got Dig Through Time in here as well. One of the important cards here is Beholder Beyond, which is a one of in every Lotus Field list, pretty much, which was skipped over in Shadows of Ritual Remastered, probably because it was drawn by Noah Bradley. Maybe we'll get that added with different art, but I actually think that they'll probably just skip over it. I think that realistically, if they get the key cards in to make the actual deck function, they can skip over Beholder Beyond and either add that later on, or for the time being, while they're just adding a small amount of cards to the format, leave it. And I come back over here. We're going to add in Hidden Strings. We're going to go ahead and add in Thespian Stage. Those are the 2 really big ones. And I'm going to add in the Sylvan Scrying as well. And so this basically gives you pretty much everything you need for the Hidden Strings deck onto Explorer. There's a couple of other things missing. We don't actually have Zakama, I believe. I don't think it was in the like Ixalan remastered sets. An asterisk next to it. And there's a couple of other like little pieces. Like I don't think we have Voyaging Satyr. We do, I believe, have Zero Tumbling Sands. So like the majority of the deck will be like functional. Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise. These are obviously huge hits. If I go back to my little search thing that I was using earlier, make sure you untick user. We'll search this to Pioneer and this to 3 months. and you can see there are 262. Some of these are like ascendancy lists, which is another card we don't have, but is like a bit of a more niche deck. Lots of Drakes recently, because that's become quite popular, and obviously Phoenix is the main deck that uses it. But the thing that I found interesting is actually, so it's 262 deck lists here with Treasure Cruise. What about Dig Through Time? And actually, 411. Actually, more decks, or at least more deck lists doing well using Dig Through Time. And again, you've got creativity here. You've got the Hidden Strings, which is the Lotus Field deck. This Grixis mid-range, various control shells as well. Blue-black control in particular, because it tends to play more specific answers, whereas blue-white control tends to play more broad answers. Blue-black tends to take advantage of Dig Through Time more than the blue-white one. You also have, like, say, Fable Passage for Potato Push, that kind of thing going on. Let's get those in here. The thing we do have to worry about a little bit is making sure there's, like, a decent balance of colors, and there's some other things that I want to get in here as well. Of course. I do have some personal biases, but we're going to try and put as many archetypes in as possible. So one of the important cards I actually want to add on here is Retraction Helix. So this opens up an entire new archetype with Rona combo, and there's a couple of different pieces that I'm missing from top decks in the format as well. I'm kind of skipping around all over the place a bit here, but if we go back to the Pioneer metagame, alright, what are we missing from the decks at the moment? Well, Nykthos, Oath of Nissa is obviously a huge piece. One of the other things in mono white, I will say, is Kythian, and this kind of, even though it's like a one of, maybe two of in most lists it's a one of, it's still missing, but it also brings us to Origins Planeswalkers and kind of rates us back to the Retraction Helix, Roto combo type stuff, and what I'm going to add to my Explorer Anthology. And hey, if you've got your own list of cards, you can put that below in the comments. Let me have a look at it. Jace Vryn's Prodigy, and we're also going to add Kythian, Hero of Akros. While I'm here as well, obviously if you're familiar with the Boros Hogak deck, there have been a few different versions, but the big card that's missing from that and Explorer is Reckless Bushwhacker. Right, okay, nice. At the minute we're at 13 cards, we've got 12 spots left. And Oath of Nissa from green I was also going to add here. There are also some other archetypes that have some key pieces missing from Pioneer, and so I don't think it's controversial, but this is certainly an oppressive card. Let's get Gladecover Scout in here for the Boggle stack, for green-white hexproof. I'm currently thinking about Jeskai Ascendancy, because it's a bit more of a niche deck. It kind of ties into the Rona combo stuff, Retraction Helix. I played a ton of Retraction Helix Jeskai Ascendancy combo back when it was legal in Standard with like Sylvan Characters. Sylvan Characters is also, I think, a really important one, because it also opens the door to things like 5-color Niv, that kind of thing. And that reminds me about the most important card, and probably my favourite card that's missing, and that is, if we have a look over here, again at the metagame. There's 5-color Fire's Invention, which we have, that's totally fine, but 5-color mid-range. And there's a few different versions of this and different 5-color control lists, but the big card we're missing is Bring to Light, which opens up a whole load of opportunities in the format. This is probably my favourite card missing, apart from the Delve spells. Like, I do love playing with Dig Through Time, but we are going to get Bring to Light in here. It's both really, really fun to play with, and also just opens the door to a lot of new stuff. Now we're at 17 cards. We're starting to run low on space. We've got 8 spots left. While we're here looking at high-color mid-range, Chain to the Rocks. This is a card that sees play both in these kind of like enigmatic incarnation decks. The 5-color deck here that we're looking at with like Bring to Light, this is more of an elemental strategy, and it also sees play in some of these red-white aggro decks. So I think Chains to the Rocks is a really, really important one to bring over as well. And there's also another land missing that I think is also pretty important. It's a bit of an innocuous one. It's like, maybe it's not that necessary, but I think bringing Urborg over is actually really important. You'll note at the moment I haven't included Temporal Trespass on here. I think that Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are, I'm not going to say enough for now, because obviously we want to get Temporal Trespass onto Arena, but while we can only bring on like a certain amount of cards, or while WotC's only bringing on a small amount of cards at a time, I think we can just leave it off for now. The 19 cards total, we've got 6 spots left. I've left off Behold the Beyond here, which I mentioned before. I'm just thinking if there's anything else from here. Yes, Voice Resurgence. After my last video, kind of looking at the first few cards from Explorer Anthology, and kind of talking about what I kind of wanted to see, many people in the comments are talking about Voice of Resurgence. I think a really, really important one. It's fallen out of favour a little bit, because it was like a really, really huge staple in the format back when Nota was dominating everything. But a really important card for these kind of elemental decks, and also kind of different like green, white, Naya aggro decks. So that brings us to 20. 5 spots left. And obviously, there's going to be things that I leave off here, or that I maybe potentially forget about. But we're trying to, and the goal here is to bridge the gap as much as possible. I'm not putting in like part of the Water Veil, even though like I want that card on Arena. I'm not putting in... There's some cards like that. Engulf the Shore, the like pick up everything for the number of islands, was left out of Shadows Innistrad Remastered. I'm still very, very unhappy about it. But I will say we've been a bit unloving to some other archetypes. One thing that's fallen out of favor a bit, but is a deck that did exist, is the blue-black Wheels deck. There are a couple of cards there. I'm like, Days Undoing does a little bit of stuff, but add one card that I think would be really, really fun to have in the format, regardless of whether we bring Days Undoing or not, is Notion Thief. Let's get that in here. Do you have space for Days Undoing? We've added a bunch of blue cards, but I'm gonna include it kind of as a 2-card package, similar to what they've done with Xenagos and Wellspine Worms. We've added that as a kind of 2-card package there. That brings that on. There are a couple of other things. Oh, another just really, really important, very obvious card that's missing is Court of Calling. I'm a huge fan of Elves decks. I've done maybe 10 different Elves videos on the channel, both in Explorer and Modern and other formats, historic as well, I think. So let's get Court of Calling on here. Court of Calling brings us to 23, and now we have some tough choices. There are things like Neoform Atraxa that I really like. Oh, it would be cool to get some cards for them. There are... I've let off the Hold the Beyond. I think that's fine. I was thinking about putting Oath of Chandra in here, but it's kind of fallen onto the wayside anyway. But one card that I think is important to bring on, especially for the red decks, is Roast. Giving Mono Red a really good answer to Sheoldred, I think it's super important. Actually, all in the format. Lizzie with a tough choice, because there are a couple of cards I still not added. The card that I'm actually going to choose, and now we're at 24 cards, is Tassiger, the Golden Fang, which enables like a little bit of Neoform shenanigans, but not like too much. And maybe we get like Gurmag Angler or Hooting Mandrills in some other set soon. There's also things that open the armory, which is missing from some of the more kind of equipment-based decks, like Hammer-type stuff. The mono-white version of Hammer that plays more cats. There is one card that I feel like we have to include, and this is where you start to get really annoyed that we've got like Cyclonic Rift in here. I love Cyclonic Rift, and like I'll happily play it in some Mind Splice Apparition pile, but it and Idle Blossoms are taking up spaces for really, really important cards. The card that I want to include here is Dreadbore, and now I have to think about what I want to cut for it. If only we could just bin off the WotC cards, but they are in the set and confirmed. Sylvan Scrying? Maybe giving the Lotus deck too much power? I don't know how much they think about that. There's that extent of which they're thinking like, oh, let's drag this out and make sure we get to milk like 4,000 gems for people every however so often, but I don't really buy into that much. The problem is that they are somewhat incentivized to do that. I don't know how much faith we have in WotC at the minute, but hey. Honestly, I think we add Dreadbore and cut Days Undoing. Notion Thieves is still a really awesome card to have in the format. You can still play that kind of deck. We have a couple of different wheel effects. You just kind of have to splash into red, maybe. So this is my 25-card Explorer Anthology. Again, it's a bit scuffed a little bit in terms of, hey, we have to keep these cards of WotC added. It is why people are getting so angry on Twitter about them just like adding in random cards, which again, I showed you the search results, literally don't see any play in the format. Deathrite Shaman I think is passable, but sees almost none. 5 deck lists in the last 3 months is absolutely nothing. There's like, admittedly top finishing deck lists, and obviously there's more casual stuff, but hey. There are tons of really, really cool cards to add as well. I don't think, like, of the really cool fun stuff you could add, those are like particularly awesome hits. But hey, this is my Explorer Anthology. Let me know yours down below, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please do like, subscribe, tell your friends all that kind of stuff. Explorer is an awesome format. It's getting closer to Pioneer. Hopefully we get the Del Spells and most of the stuff here. If we don't have Treasure Cruise and things through time, I don't know what's going on. But hey, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Peace out.